Super Mario 64 was an incredibly important milestone, not only for the game industry, but in my personal development as a fan of video games. Released in 1996 as a worldwide launch title for the brand new Nintendo 64 video game console, Super Mario 64 was the first truly three-dimensional Mario game, and the first main series 3D Mario game that I had played. Instantly, the world drew me in to a degree that no other game had before, and that very few have since. Even at the young age at which I played the game for the first time, it struck me with a feeling of wonder, intense immersion, and joy. As I continued to explore Princess Peach's castle and the various locations contained in the paintings found throughout, a new feeling struck me, a strange atmosphere about the game that for years I felt unable to describe adequately. But today I'm going to attempt to do so through this video, both to share my experience with this remarkable title and to hopefully find others who might feel the same way about the game. Anyway, let's get right to it. Super Mario 64's unusual atmosphere struck me early on, but it wasn't until years after my first time playing that I was able to grasp why it did. The world of the game feels a little odd. The best way I can think to describe it is as a toy box, a playground full of wide open spaces and fun things to discover. But there are many times in which the game feels unintentionally empty, almost like a tech demo, for lack of a better term, especially when comparing it to other games in the Mario series, games that came before and after 64. The Super Mario games always contain worlds that were for the most part bright, sunny, and exaggerated with a cartoony effect that avoids a certain uncanny valley feeling. For me, Super Mario 64 fits neatly into that uncanny valley. It's a mix of nostalgia and something that reaches the point of being a tad bit unsettling, like a fever dream you only have a faint memory of. The question is, what makes the game feel this way? Let's break it down and see if we can get a better understanding of it. Super Mario 64 defines the Nintendo 64 as much as the Nintendo 64 defines it. For me, the two are forever intertwined. It's no wonder. As I mentioned earlier, Super Mario 64 was a launch title for the console, and one of the first games Nintendo began working on for it. It was in many ways representative of the type of experience you would find on the console, beneficial to it from both a creative and business perspective. There's obviously little doubt that Super Mario 64 was also designed to be a system seller. There's no way for anyone outside of the Nintendo offices to truly know exactly how the development of the game proceeded. We do know quite a bit thanks to bits and pieces of info shared by those who were on the inside during those days. In an interview with Giles Goddard, a Nintendo programmer who worked on Super Mario 64, Goddard explains how Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario, placed an emphasis on movement, animation, and the control scheme quite early on. To quote Mr. Goddard, "That was the first thing. We were just playing around with Mario. He was wandering around a simple grid to start with, just picking stuff up, dropping stuff. The animation was quite central to what he was doing. A lot of the animation was actually in there before any of the game. The Mario that Miyamoto had running around basically looked as he did in the final version." Given that Super Mario 64's controls still hold up surprisingly well today, it's no surprise that the development team decided to work on getting the controls and movement feeling just right before building the world of the game. I think this is actually one of Super Mario 64's greatest accomplishments. The team was working with largely proprietary silicon graphics machines that were likely unfamiliar to most of the team, all to create one of the first truly 3D games Nintendo had ever attempted to make. In spite of this, the accuracy of the controls feels in most cases spot on. It's this inexperience with the Nintendo 64 hardware and the software used to create games for the system, as well as the limitations of the hardware itself, that I feel is responsible for a big chunk of the bizarre atmosphere Super Mario 64 has at times. Everything that makes the game what it is was heavily limited by today's standards. The amount of polygons on screen, the size of the textures, the music had to be purely MIDI as the cartridges simply didn't have enough space to store recorded music tracks. The developers had to work with what they had. All Nintendo 64 developers had to work around these restrictions before add-ons like the expansion pack, of course. But Super Mario 64 was something of an experiment in itself. Nintendo dipping a toe in the water and seeing exactly what they could do within these limitations. What Nintendo did was create worlds that were a strange mix of semi-realistic structures and textures. A land made entirely of geometrically simplistic shapes with images of bricks, wood, dirt, grass, and any variety of textures placed on top to represent those things. Princess Peach's castle looked how you would expect it. A regal building with tiled and red carpeted rooms. The walls were sometimes covered with murals of cheery green hills and blue skies, sometimes with deep night skies filled with stars. Large winding staircases led to higher and lower levels of the castle, locked behind doors that could only be opened by collecting power stars or keys. Occasionally you can come across something out of place, like a large rug with a sun design woven into it. If you happen to stand on the rug and look directly up at the sun painted on the ceiling, you'll instantly be whisked away high in the sky, surrounded by towers and rings of floating coins, flying with the help of your trusty wing cap. Peach's castle didn't make much sense as a building, but it didn't need to. It served its purpose as a captivating hub world, a home base to rest in and explore between levels. Not only that, but it was host to a variety of secrets, a hidden slide somehow contained behind what appears to be a decorative stained glass window. There's a huge secret room filled with water, containing coins and windows in the center of each of the 4 walls. Outside the windows, a clear blue sky. Levels were contained within paintings, approximations of the worlds you would find within. Simply jump right in and explore a new environment filled with enemies, perilous platforming, and more stars and coins than you could ever dream of. You can even look to the sky in Wet Dry World and find an actual city, seemingly submerged in water. Unlike future Mario games cast from its mold, 64 was largely devoid of friendly NPCs. Occasionally in the castle you would find a toad or two, maybe a mischievous rabbit, but otherwise you were by yourself. The actual worlds contained within paintings would oftentimes be more populated with friendly NPCs, like the pink bob-ombs of Bob-omb Battlefield, or the friendly penguin that challenges you to a race inside 2 cabins connected by a frozen slide. But compared to future 3D Mario titles and many other N64 games that would come later, there weren't many friendly faces to be found. The design intricacies of Super Mario games were still being ironed out as well. Enemies looked a little wonky. The 3D Mario art style that's very familiar now, seen in games like Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario Odyssey, wasn't quite fully formed. All these elements combined gives the game an otherworldly feel, and I have to say, I love it. It's truly a glimpse into the development of the Super Mario series and to what it has become, and a clear example of a developer overcoming an exciting new technology that was no doubt a little frightening, and difficult to come to grips with after years of developing 2-dimensional games. When you play Super Mario 64, you are in many ways playing a beta of what was to come, the beginnings of a new era in video games. Super Mario 64 is a game I've played for most of my life, a game that has been picked apart bit by the internet. Though all of the secrets within its code have likely been discovered long ago, I still have the feeling I could boot the game up right now and find something new. I feel like there could be a hidden room I never discovered, a secret level tucked away deep within the castle. I know this really isn't the case, but that sense of wonder is still there all these years later. I think that might be what fueled all those silly playground rumors back in the day. The supposed significance of the star statue in the courtyard that in reality wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I think the greatest thing Nintendo accomplished with Super Mario 64 was instilling a childlike wonder in so many people, myself included, and for that, I'll be forever grateful. Anyway, that's all for now. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you have similar feelings about Super Mario 64 or perhaps another game? Let me know in the comments, I would love to discuss it with you. And as always, I will see you next time.